Hey, thanks for joining us. We have with us today, in addition to Senator Sears, Chair of the Judiciary Committee, and Senator Allison, and Senator Diane Snow. Thanks for joining us. We also have from the Pew Center on the State's Public Safety Performance Project, Richard Jerome. You've met him before. He's been very helpful to us in our work on recidivism. In addition to Administrative Judge Amy Davenport, representing the Judiciary today, who's been a partner with us in this project that we're about to talk a little bit about. And we have representative from the best senator in America, Senator Patrick Leahy. That would be Diane Bird. I don't know if you ever met her in the press corps, but she's been around for a few years. And we also have with us from the Council on State Governments, our partner in this project, Mike Thompson, Jesse Tyler, and Ted Holloway. Thanks for joining us. Raise your hands so they know who you are. One, Jesse, or Jesse, go. Yeah, just come on up. Don't be shy. Mike. We want to talk to you a little bit today about the extraordinary progress that we're making in our war on recidivism. And as you know, this was a crisis that met bipartisan attention and tripartisan government support. The Judiciary, the Legislature, and the Executive came together in 2008 because of the alarming rate of growth in our prison population and therefore our correction budgets. Here were the facts. In 2007, it was projected that at current rates of growth, Vermont would see a 26% projected growth in our prison population by 2018. We have to remember that's after we'd already experienced an 80% increase in the number of Vermonters that were behind bars in the prior 10 years. What that meant was that our correction spending, let's remember, correction spending, every dime of that money comes out of hardworking Vermonters' pockets, not out of the federal government. It's all Vermont taxpayers. So we had a corrections budget that had doubled in a decade. It was the second largest area of growth in our state budget. We couldn't build prisons fast enough. As you will recall, under Governor Dean, we finally built a new prison in Springfield. It took several years. By the time we completed that prison, all the beds were filled. When we thought that we built it, we thought we were building for the future. When it was completed and the ribbon was cut, we were having to ship prisoners out of state because our population was growing so fast. So we had a crisis, and we came together with Pew, with Council on State Governments, and used Vermont as an example of how we could use innovative public policy to win the war on recidivism. The result is that in 2009, when this was launched, we had 2,300 Vermonters behind bars, or 2,300 prisoners behind bars. Today, we're down to 2,059 prisoners. So instead of growing by 26%, we've reduced our prison population significantly. We've done that while reducing crime and making Vermont's streets safer than they were. So this is a great accomplishment, and we are winning this war on recidivism by a very thoughtful approach of ensuring that we have the programs, preventative programs in our communities, drug and alcohol counseling, housing, education, job training, internships, to ensure that we stop the revolving door back into prison of nonviolent offenders who were getting back into prison at an alarming rate, 45, 48% within 3 years. So this is good news. It's real progress. I want to thank our partners in this endeavor, obviously the Legislature, the Judiciary, as well as the Pew Center and the Council on State Governments. And I want to turn it over now to a few of our friends that are here. We'll start with Richard Jerome, who's been with us from the very beginning, Pew Center. And Richard, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very much happy to be here. I do want to say that in 2007, the Pew Center on the States did a statewide report of national 50-state report looking at prison projected growth, and Vermont was highlighted as a state with the greatest projected growth in the Northeast states, and actually the 5th highest in the country. As Governor Shumlin said, there was a projected increase in the prison population of about 26% from 2008 to 2018, and that was on top of the growth for the previous 10 years. And I think we're here today because of a remarkable turnaround. Instead of runaway prison growth and population, Vermont has really found ways to change the course. And so we really applaud Vermont for setting the state on a path for better public safety. I think one of the things we'd like to highlight is, again, this was an effort done through a bipartisan, inter-branch agency effort. All 3 branches, the executive, the judiciary, the legislature, work together. And we're finding in states across the country this idea of really focusing on research-based strategies to address corrections and sentencing and find better ways to use our public safety dollars. So what these strategies have done here in Vermont, and we're finding this around the country, is that we are essentially making communities safer, we're holding offenders accountable, and we're reining in prison costs. So again, states are finding this to be a win-win situation when they use research-based strategies, when they find ways to get a better return on their public safety dollars. They are cutting corrections costs and cutting crime. And I think we really want to applaud Vermont for taking the lead in doing that in 2008 with their justice reinvestment legislation. And we're finding that that's the case in states across the country, leaders on both sides of the aisle coming together to address these kinds of issues. So we have found this kind of work and seen this kind of progress in states like Kentucky, Ohio, North Carolina, South Carolina, Arkansas. And again, we are continuing to work in states to address these issues. There are other states that still see an increase in the prison population. So we are definitely working with states to try and find those strategies, again, that are research-based, that really show a way to reduce recidivism. And again, the point that Governor Shumlin raised is that the recidivism rate here in Vermont has decreased, the crime rate has decreased at the same time as the prison population has decreased. So we very much look forward to continuing to work with Vermont on these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's good work. I want to steal it. Thanks. And thanks to the Pew Center for their extraordinary work in partnering with us. Both Senators Sears and Representative Emmons have been at the foundation of this effort, working very hard on our war on recidivism, and I want to hear from both of them. Senator Sears.
Thank you, Governor. I'll just be brief. Of all the things that I think I've done in my years in the legislature, this has probably been the most rewarding, as well as finally seeing some success. If you look back to where we were when the Pew Center first made its recommendations and where we are today and where we're headed for the future, I think it shows a very positive trend. And I might add that if you look at the roadblocks that were put and challenges put in front of us in keeping this trend low, you look back to the Brooke Bennett tragedy, the legislative response. So today we're actually locking up more violent offenders, more sex offenders than ever before. Which is what our goal was, to leave precious prison space for violent offenders. And if you look at the crime rates, and just looking at the money saved doesn't tell the full story. Because if you look at what we would have spent had that rate not been stable, it's probably an additional $20 million a year that is now going into other things rather than into a correction system. So I am pleased to be here today to kind of celebrate something that went right in Vermont rather than something that goes wrong. I recognize that there are some areas of the state that are still seeing high quality of life crimes. Those would be the break into your car, break into your house, and some violent crimes. And I think those are related to the prescription drug and the heroin epidemic that we're seeing. And both branches of the legislature, along with the governor's office, are trying to work diligently on that problem as well. That doesn't change the overall numbers, but if you look at numbers going down in light of what's happened over the last 5 years, I think it's a tremendous achievement. So I'm proud to be here today with the governor, with the Representative Emmons, who she and I have kind of led the effort on both sides of the body, and thank you.
Appreciate your good work.
Thank you. Yes. I'd like to echo Senator Sears' words. It was very gratifying to see what has occurred here, and I think that what we really need to be diligent about is that we continue this, that we don't ease up. And I would, in reflection, really like to thank the Council of State Governments. They came up to the plate and really worked with the administration, worked with the judicial branch and the legislature in terms of looking at our Department of Corrections, and looking at the research-based analysis, and came back with recommendations for legislative work and input. And with Senator Sears and myself, we put in the Justice Reinvestment in 2008, and then built upon that a few years ago with the reduction in recidivism. And I think what is so important here is, yes, we're talking about corrections, and we're talking about the dollars that we save, but there's a people cost here. And I think we have to realize that folks who are incarcerated are our Vermonters, they're our neighbors, in some cases our family members, and we want them to be productive in our state. And in order to do that, we need to invest. And that's what the work we've been doing since 2008 does that. And I'm committed to continuing it, as I'm sure Senator Sears is as well. Thank you.
Thanks for your good work, and thanks to the other legislators in this room and elsewhere who worked so hard on this. We couldn't have gotten where we've gotten without the extraordinary partnership with the judiciary. And as you know, the Chief Justice was a partner in this project, as was the entire court system. And I want to give Administrative Judge Amy Davenport a minute to say a few words. Thank you for your work.
This has been a very interesting project. The judiciary's traditional role is to remain independent, outside of the fray, let the legislature and the executive branch make all the decisions, and then we'll try to apply the law in the courtroom. But I think we reached a turning point where that really was counterproductive for us as judges. As judges, we need to be making decisions at sentencing particularly on the most serious offenses, but on all offenses that's evidence-based. And those evidence-based strategies require, A, that you have the services in the community to be able to carry out a sentence for the low-risk offender in the community versus in prison. They also require that we have good information when we sentence folks, so that we understand what their risk is to the community and what their risk is to reoffend or not reoffend. I think in the past we have sentenced to the crime, and that's what people expect us to do. Sentencing to the risk is a very different way of thinking about sentencing and how we use resources in a way that helps ensure that we reduce crime in Vermont. And that's the process that we're going through. We need tools in order to do that, and I really want to thank particularly Senator Sears and Representative Emmons and the Commissioner Polito for really trying to look at this from the judge's point of view in terms of what does the judge need to know in order to make a smart and wise decision at sentencing. So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We wouldn't be where we are without federal help to help us have the dollars to make this transition. I want to give a shout out to Senator Leahy, to Senator Sanders, and Congressman Welch, who worked so hard on this. And Diane, we appreciate you being here on behalf of Senator Leahy. The one who's been at the till overseeing this transition from corrections has been Commissioner Andy Polito. He's doing an extraordinary job. As you know, he was the commissioner in the past administration. He's the commissioner now, and I'm incredibly proud of the work that he's been doing. So Andy, give us a second.
I want to thank the governor, Senator Sears, Representative Edmonds for their leadership, Judge Davenport. You know, this is kind of a community effort. The department is at the end of the till, if you will, on this. We get people that are sentenced and go through a series of processes affected by statute and so on and so forth. And so we were very affected by all those front-end actions. We really came together as a group under the governor's leadership when he was in charge of the Senate and then the governor to really take this seriously. And the focus is where Senator Sears mentioned, which is on reducing crime in local communities and how we affect that in a positive way. I think we're getting better at that. This is kind of a progress report at this point. This will be an ongoing process for years to come, but we're learning a lot more about the system. The department is getting much smarter in how it affects crime and how we handle people. And I think as a result, we're seeing people that are in the nonviolent category go down, and people in the violent category being held accountable for longer periods of time, and as a result, you're seeing a decrease in crime rates. We did have a redefinition of recidivism a couple of years ago with the help of the Council of State Governments, and frankly, a really pushed by the Pew Center, which really is the national expert on this under their guidance. But we have had recidivism definitions in the department for a number of years, none of which make sense nationally. Now they do, but those rates are continually dropping over the last few years. And so we're really seeing good progress. And the governor and I have had many conversations about this, and really we have taken this seriously, and we're seeing good progress. I want to thank all of the people up here for pushing on the department to really move forward. And the department is taking this seriously and handles this stuff day in and day out. So,
thank you. I appreciate your patience. And some people do baseball scores, others do basketball scores. I have Andy send me the recidivism numbers on what, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night usually. But we're making good progress. All of this wouldn't have been possible without the partnership of Council of State Governments. Pat Holiday and Jesse Tyler are here, but Mike Thompson is also here from the Council of State Governments, and he's going to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Governor. I want to, again, just congratulate everyone here. Senator Sears, who's a member of our National Board of Directors, for all of his leadership on this, Representative Edmonds, Judge Davenport, it really truly, Senator Snelling, it really truly has been a bipartisan interbranch effort that we've been very pleased to be a part of. I want to point out again the dilemma that the state faced in 2007 as it was looking at skyrocketing prison population. Frankly, there are other states that choose to stick their head in the sand when faced with these kinds of dilemmas. Vermont really looked hard at the issue, decided it was not condemned to this fate. It was going to take a hard look at the numbers, work in a very research-driven way, and we've seen the results of that approach. And now you have many states that would love to be in a situation that Vermont is in. Keep in mind that approximately half the states today are still facing growing prison populations, and they would love to be able to have a chart much like yours that shows money saved, crime down, recidivism down, and the prison population down. So those are the metrics that you want to have in the legislature and the governor and the judiciary, and we congratulate you for your approach to this. And again, we are also very excited that you're not stopping here. You recognize that there's more to be done to reduce recidivism, and we're eager to continue to partner with you on that. And really grateful to Senator Leahy, who continues to really focus like a laser on this issue of recidivism through his championship of the Second Chance Act nationally and the Justice Reinvestment Act. So looking forward to working with you more precisely on these details, and we'll be talking in the afternoon, so thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for your good work. I think Mike hit it on the head. We are not declaring victory today. We are giving you a update on how we're doing. We still have a long way to travel. And we talked a lot about bending the curve on the corrections numbers. It's important to know that roughly $54,000, $56,000 a year to incarcerate someone in Vermont. Were we to lose this battle, it would be a tremendous burden on high tax-paying Vermonters who are already struggling to pay their bills. So it's absolutely critical that we win this war. We will. We hope to continue to make progress. We have a very progressive and aggressive program to continue to make progress in the future. We're a little hesitant about projecting the future because you never know who's going to commit what crime when, and we know that corrections numbers can be volatile. But we're optimistic that we're on the right track for saving Vermonters' taxpayer money, keeping Vermont safe, and showing the rest of the country how to reduce this revolving door into prison that's going to bankrupt all of us if we don't think more thoughtfully about how to deal with this challenge. So you have to answer questions if you have them.
Is the corrections budget declining as a result of this, or are we spending money, the same amount of money different ways?
No, we're actually starting to see, we hope, some declines in the budget that I introduced this year. We reinvested some money in prevention programs, but every time that we have a decline in prison population, we do have a decline in budget.
And are we still sending people out of state?
We are, but our goal is, as you know, with the reorg that we're doing, to try and do a better job of filling in-state beds to reduce our dependence on out-of-state placements. We aren't there yet, but that's our goal.
So on the trend this year, it's about 140 million this year, right?
Yes.
And then, so is next year's budget less?
We hope. In other words, if we have declining numbers, we will have declining budgets.
Okay, but did you introduce, the budget that you introduced was a lower figure?
It was one.
So the 2013 budget was introduced, it was actually lower than the 2011. We hit a major milestone in Vermont. We went below 500 people out of state. We were close to 700, projected to go over 1,000. That number today is below 500. We're projecting to go over 400 next year. That's the biggest projection.
What were the trends in violent crime in the decade preceding 2008?
We have time to look that up, and we'll get back to you.
Is the reduction in recidivism related at all to the redefinition of recidivism?
We do not believe so, but I'm happy to have Andy talk about that.
So we've had longstanding definitions in the Department of Corrections around recidivism. We do it by program. The issue with the recidivism definition that's in statute now is it's based on certain criteria of what happens when somebody gets out of corrections custody. That criteria is different than the old definition. The new definition is more comparable to national definitions. The old definition still shows a decrease as well. So you can, even though we had a redefinition and we're using this definition, all of the recidivism data in the department shows decrease, consistent with the.
Can you say what, if it's down 9% under the new definition, what is it under the old?
I don't know if I memorized, but I'd have to pull, it's on our facts and figures on our public website.
Do you know that?
Well, I can just say Vermont, as you know, is a fairly unusual state in its organization, its correction system, because it's a unified system. One of the things that's impressive about Vermont is just how much information it has about recidivism. And in this case, it almost turned out to be a flaw because there were so many different ways of looking at it. That said, using all of the different measures that Vermont used for recidivism, we saw that recidivism was headed down no matter what metric the state was using. We do think now that Vermont has a metric that we think is more comparable to other states, so it gives you a better sense of where things are. And we're going to be talking about that in more detail this afternoon in the committee briefing we'll be doing.
But to be clear, this is not an example where we changed the definition and therefore our numbers went down.
Correct.
Under any measure, our numbers went down. We're succeeding.
In Burlington, both the police chief and the head of the Marketplace Commission have expressed strong concerns about low-level violent behavior and crime. And in fact, the chairman of the Marketplace Commission said, the corrections department seems to be getting out of the business of doing corrections. That's our experience. In other words, the state's not taking care of folks doing things like committing assaults. How would you react to that?
Well, let me start by saying we are taking the war on opiates very seriously. And as you know, I proposed before the legislature, which the legislature has been working on, that we believe will help be a tool in ensuring that we win on this one. One reason that we're seeing an increase, a perceived increase, certainly in some communities, a real increase, in breaking and entering and other non-violent related crimes is because people are feeding their opiate habits. And Vermont shares this thing.